It's a mad dash until Election Day, and both former President Trump and Vice President Harris are out on the campaign trail right now in key battleground states. Trump is heading from Georgia to North Carolina. Harris is in Michigan. I want to bring in CNN senior data reporter Harry Enten. Harry, we talk a lot about battlegrounds, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Arizona. I'm hearing Democrats expressing a lot of concern right now about Michigan. Where do Harris and Trump stand in Michigan right now?
Yeah, I think there's good reason for Democrats to be concerned with what's going on in the Wolverine State. And we can see it right here in the polling average. Look, if you look at the Democrat versus Trump margin in, of course, the great state of Michigan, what do we see in the polling average? We see Kamala Harris only up by a point, right? Compare that to the 2020 result when Joe Biden won, of course, in Michigan by 3. Joe Biden at this point in the polls in 2020 was up by 6. No matter what way you splice it, 1 point is significantly less than 6 points. It's a race at this particular point, Mr. Tapper, that is far too close to call. And of course, Michigan is so pivotal, both for Kamala Harris and for Donald Trump, but even more so for Kamala Harris, because this is the chance they win the election if they lose in the great state of Michigan. The chance that Harris wins the election if she loses in Michigan is just 7%. For Trump, it's 16%, slightly higher. But I think the key nugget that you can take away from this data is Michigan is a must-win, but it's especially a must-win for Kamala Harris.
There's also a lot of talk. There are a lot of union members in Michigan, and we know union leadership's endorsement of a presidential candidate only goes so far. It really comes down to the rank and file members who might be in favor of Trump because they're worried about electric vehicles. There might be cultural issues, et cetera, et cetera. Where does the union vote stand in Michigan?
Yeah, so let's take a look. We'll look at this year, and then we'll compare it to where we were back in 2020. So this is union households in Michigan, presidential election margins. Look at this. Joe Biden won that vote by 15 points back in 2020. Look at where the margin is now. Harris is ahead in union households, but that number, that lead for her, is down to just 6 points, down to 6 points. And this mirrors something that we've seen nationally, and that is, at least among union households, Kamala Harris is right now showing the poorest showing for any Democrat. You'd have to go all the way back since 1984 in the Reagan landslide when Mondale won union households by even less than right now what Harris is ahead by. But the bottom line is, yes, Harris is ahead among union households in Michigan, but that margin is considerably slimmer than what Joe Biden won amongst them back in 2020.
And in this perfect storm in Michigan for Harris, Democrats are also worried about losing strength with Arab American and Muslim American voters in places such as Dearborn. Because of what's going on in the Middle East right now. What does history tell us?
Yeah, what does history tell us about Dearborn? It can basically change at a moment's notice. You know, Joe Biden won in Dearborn by 39 points last time around, but history is not always prologue, because I want you to take a look back at the beginning of this century. Remember, George W. Bush won in Dearborn by 8 points. Then 4 years later, after the war on terror started, a lot of Muslims turned against the Bush administration. John Kerry won in Dearborn by 19 points. And remember, uncommitted in the Democratic primary this past time around won a majority of the vote in Dearborn. So the bottom line is Dearborn and the Arab Muslim vote very much up for grabs in Michigan. Not a good sign for Kamala Harris.
All right, Harry Enten, thanks so much. Let's continue this conversation with Democratic strategist James Carville. And James, you just heard Harry Enten lay out what's in stake in battleground Michigan. Are you confident Harris can win Michigan?
Well, if I listen to you and Harry, I think she ought to quit. Okay? I mean, I just never seen anything like the piling on about, well, she's behind in union households, she's behind in Dearborn, she's behind here, there, she's behind everywhere. I'll go ahead and make a prediction. If there's 7 swing states, the least likely outcome is they break 4-3. But it's also, Jake, a gospel rule that every piece of information has to be interpreted in the most negative light for Democrats. But I don't know if she's behind in everything. Why is she ahead? You know, maybe I'm just too stupid and not sophisticated enough to figure this out. But I don't think she ought to quit. I think she ought to play through Election Day.
Well, no one's suggesting that she quit, but she does have challenges in Michigan.
Well, listen to the segment, it sounds like she should.
I'm hearing from top Democrats today who say that they're worried about Michigan. That they're not saying they're giving up. They're saying they got, you know.
Right. You think Trump's not worried about North Carolina? You think Trump's not worried about Wisconsin? I mean, but all I'm saying, Jake, there is a ironclad rule that every data point has to be interpreted in the most negative light for the Democrat. And I'm just challenging that ironclad rule. That's all.
Well, I give you the data point to shoot down and explain why Democrats should feel more confident. Let me ask you about something. So one of the challenges for Harris is right now the Arab American and Muslim American populations all over, but especially in Michigan, where there's a sizable population, are very negative about Biden, and less so, but also not feeling excited about Harris because of the war in the Middle East, because of Israel going after Hamas. Now, I want to play a clip from a local NBC affiliate from Sunday. This is the publisher of the Arab American News talking on a local NBC station, and I want to get your view on what he had to say. It's a full screen. Okay, I'm saying he said, we have been living lies in America, propaganda that says that Hamas is a terrorist organization, that says that Hezbollah is a terrorist organization. They're going to kill the Jews. They're going to throw them in the sea. That is all nonsense. That's a quote from him, Osama Siblani. And then when he was asked if Hamas's attacks on October 7th invited the misery that Gazans are now experiencing, this gentleman, the publisher of the Arab American News, said, quote, "What do you expect people to do? Stay under occupation? What are they supposed to do? They're supposed to fight back. It is a legitimate right under international law. You have the right to fight your occupier, especially if your occupier is an oppressor," unquote. So this is a prominent member of the Arab American community in Michigan. How can Kamala Harris get the support of somebody who thinks that way?
So let's back up. Trump says, "I'll let Bibi do whatever the hell he wants to do." Harris and Biden are saying we need to have a ceasefire. We need to sit down and do that. So then they ask these people that are protesting Biden, who's actually more favorably disposed to their point of view, and they said, "Well, we can't do anything about Trump." Well, that doesn't make any sense. And I think Arabs in Michigan and everywhere around the world are very smart and savvy people. So I don't know why you would say we're not going to vote for the people that actually want to try to effectuate a very difficult solution to the problem here, as opposed to somebody who says, "I'm just whatever Bibi wants, I'm going to give him." At some level, it doesn't make any sense. But again, it is the ironclad rule that we have to interpret everything in the most negative light for Democrats.